I love football.
I bloody love football.
Back of the net.
Desire. Hungry. And a lot of times I use the word horny through my play.
When we make clean sheet, I pay to everybody a tip.
No. You have to make a decision in relation to that, because I need to know from you what is the most important thing. If it is to play well, or if it is to win matches.
We've shown wonderful character this week.
You're very welcome along to Post to Post Sport. This Euro 20, what year are we in? 2022. It was supposed to be 2021, but it's 2022 special. And the Women's Euros was quite successful. I think it was the most watched Euros of all time for the women's game anyway, certainly. And well, we have someone who certainly knows what they're talking about when it comes to women's football. We have Abby Ticehurst. Have I said that wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, good. We're still on track. I'm not going to list all the different things you do in football because I can't even remember all of them. But you used to write for a blog I contribute to now and then, Impetus Women's Football, and you certainly know your stuff. And you're from England, so I'm sure you're pretty happy at the moment.
Yes, absolutely buzzing. I'm still in a little bit of a sort of bubble about it, actually, if I'm honest. And I am quite happy to admit I have cried multiple times over it. I cried on the final whistle. I cried whilst we were singing and dancing, whilst the players did their lap of honour. Cried when I got home. I've cried at the multiple kind of compilation videos they've put out there. So yeah, it's been an emotional week. I'm actually struggling a little bit with my voice as well, because I just did a lot of screaming and singing and things like that. So yeah, it's been a fantastic week actually.
Yeah, I mean we're only a couple of days removed from it. Looking at the tournament as a whole, I mean well, I'm not a neutral, I suppose, when it comes to England because I'm Irish, but no Irish person's neutral when it comes to England. But I would say one thing: England's certainly the best team in the tournament when you look at it as a whole. It was probably a final between the two best teams of the tournament, and England very much deserving at the end. How were you feeling during the game? There was obviously going 1-0 up, then conceding a late equaliser. It seems like we had that last year in the men's final. It's all happening again. Then there's extra time. Looked like penalties were looming. There was a handball incident that Germany didn't get a penalty for. So it was emotional. Anyway, how do you, just a couple of days while it's still fresh, how do you look back at the game?
I think I'm actually a really awful person to watch football with, because I just find it so tense. My heart rate must have been minimum 160 for the entire game. And my poor friend who I went with, so we used to play football together, and I was like, should we go to the Euros? This was like July last year. She was like, yeah, why not? And I flukingly actually just bought finals tickets. We decided to go to both of England's opening games, and then I was like, oh, do you know what? I'll just buy I'll buy finals tickets because you never know. But I didn't tell her until I bought them. So then I just sort of dropped it afterwards. I was like, by the way, I bought a final ticket. She was like, what? And yeah, the fact that England made it there was incredible. But yeah, the actual game itself was, yeah, I think a lot of England's performances have taken them around sort of half an hour, 40 minutes to grow into the game. So I think leading into the final, that was a little bit tense, knowing that's how the games have gone previously. And then obviously we had that sensational Ella Toone goal, which just chipped it over the keeper, and that was, yeah, delightful. But yeah, so like the build up around it and stuff like that was amazing. But I think a lot of people, obviously given what happened with the men last season, were quite tense about it. And I definitely myself, but any time I was in the stadium and I heard someone singing It's Coming Home, I'd be like, no, stop that. I was like, I'm not saying it until we're lifting that trophy at the end. And then I absolutely rinsed it. But yeah, I was feeling quite apprehensive about it actually. And yeah, like you say, that late equaliser. And I said to my friends as well, I was like, just so you know, I'm going to prep you before the game happens. I was like, if it goes to extra time, I'm going to be on edge. I might need you to help me out. And I was like, if it goes to penalties, you might need to get medical assistance for me, because like, my heart will not take it. I probably shouldn't admit this, but I don't have huge amounts of faith in us as penalty takers. I don't know, maybe if I'm just scarred from the men last year, but I don't know if I could really pick out anybody who is especially kind of good at the craft of penalty taking. Maybe that's me insulting our women's players in that kind of respect. But yeah, I don't know. I just was very glad that we didn't have to see any penalties at any point, thank goodness.
It seems like we probably would have seen more sensible substitutions than bringing 3 players on just to take penalties anyway. That is one thing about the tournament. Fairly consistent squad lineup. I think it was was it the same, pretty much the same starting 11 the whole time, yeah. And it was I mean, on the one hand, if things go wrong, you can talk about players maybe being unhappy not to get a chance, but things weren't very right, and it was consistency, and in fairness, the performances very much justified the squad selection.
Yeah, absolutely. I think where it's been such a strange time for the England squad because the talent has absolutely been there for years now, but they just weren't managed effectively. And then I think we had that kind of strange Olympic setup and we ended up 4th. And I think bringing Serena Wiedmann in, I mean, the stats talk for themselves. I think it's 19 games now unbeaten and we've scored something like 115 goals and conceded 4. So, yeah, it's just she stuck to the game plan and it clearly worked, like you said. So yeah, we kept the same starting 11 each time. I think as well, it's interesting, a lot of people were talking about how they didn't think Ellen White should have maybe been in the squad or how was she starting the entire time. But I don't know if it's just a bit of a sort of one way to think about it. I think a lot, her role in the squad as she's got older has kind of it's changed a little and it's been adapted. And I think she's become, this is not a thing, but she's become a bit of a defensive striker, if that's a way to describe it, but sort of kind of drawing the centre-backs away so that actually we could effectively use the wings. And yeah, we did, absolutely. Hemp and Mead had fantastic games, and even Lucy Bronze and kind of her meandering right-back role. So I think, yeah, people are quick to be like, why are we starting with the same 11 again? But I mean, I don't think anybody's really questioning it now that we've won the tournament. So yeah, and then I think the impact that we had of the subs, I think, because they're younger as well. So Russo's 23, Ella Toon, she's 21, I think it is. Chloe Kelly's 21 as well. So I think it's just exciting to know that they were kind of impact subs in this tournament, but actually it's proof of what the England squad's going to be like in the future, and that's what we've got to look forward to even more so.
Yeah, you mentioned the wings there. We see a lot of in football in general now. Inverted wingers, very much so they're cutting inside, but we saw some more traditional wing play from this England team. Like we saw more, I guess, right on the right and left on the left, and it seemed to catch a few things off guard. Like that Norway game was bizarre. I honestly thought it was probably going to be a draw. I overestimated Norway, I suppose. But we were all talking about Norway as dark horses, and then. What was your experience with that game? I mean, England just tore them apart completely. Look, the penalty was probably not a penalty, but then there were 7 more goals there. It was just one-way traffic. It was just a whitewash.
Yeah, so I think having been to that game on the Monday and then going and watching the Northern Ireland game on the Friday, it felt as if they were the wrong way round. So Northern Ireland sort of cut the defence, like they played a really good defensive game. So I think a lot of people were expecting a bit of a bloodbath when we played them, but it was more of a bloodbath when we played Norway. I think it's tricky because the squad depth in the Norway team is sensational, and so I think it's possible. Well, I mean, they've sacked their manager now, so I think that's probably the indication of what went wrong there. I think maybe they played players slightly out of position and just, I don't know, it seems, I was sat right behind the goal as well, so I think that was quite a good position that we were in, and we were a little bit kind of further up, so I had quite a good vision of it, and it just seems like Norway seems to play quite a narrow game, I think, and so that's where we were able to use those wings and really exploit those areas, and I think it helps that Bronze is very willing to push forward. So we were playing with a back 4, but really we were playing with a back 3. So actually she was able to push herself further up, and she's got so much pace, and so does Hemp, and so does Mead as well. So, and I think Fran Kirby being there as well, she was sort of playing a little bit more of an attacking midfielder role rather than being right up as a striker. And I think actually, like I said before, Ellen White being able to play a bit of a sort of defensive role meant that she could split the centre-backs, and then that's when Kirby could push up. And then essentially we were sort of playing with 4 strikers then, really. So I think maybe we just overloaded Norway and they just weren't anticipating that possibly. So yeah, like you say, it was just a really strange tournament for them. I think it'll be one they'll want to forget fairly soon.
Yeah, certainly. In terms of the media coverage of the tournament and the reception of England winning over there, how has it been received? I mean, we were talking about there before we started recording. There's kind of, oftentimes it's hard to find good women's football coverage because you either get very dismissive, it's only women's football, it doesn't matter, or you get very condescending, they were all great, don't worry about it, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and there you miss a lot of the analysis. I mean, there's very little actual breakdown of tactics, there's very little fair criticism, there's very little genuine praise. It can kind of be just a massive condescending, women a great bunch of lads kind of thing. And how have things been after the final? Because we're hearing all this about it's changed women's football now. Can you see a change the way it's been covered?
Yeah, I think it was just nice to see every national page smothered with the celebration that we'd won, actually, because usually it ends up in, I mean, it's not always, so it's more recently it's definitely got better, and I mean, there's a few publications that still you think, you didn't need to print that, did you? Yeah. But it's definitely improved significantly in terms of the coverage, but it is often not necessarily an afterthought, but it's like, we'll give them a column or two, but we'll flood the rest of the paper with men's football and things like that. And often when you go on, I think it's different in terms of print and digital as well, but often when you go on digital publications, you have to keep scrolling a while to find things. So there's definitely room for improvement, but I think it's a tricky one right now, because I think we're only 3 days on, aren't we? So we're still in this big bubble of how exciting it is that we've won and things like that. And obviously everyone's piggybacked on the fact that it's 56 years since the men won the World Cup, so we're apparently still talking about that. Mm-hmm. So that's been a bit of a focus as well, which, I mean, I'd prefer it wasn't, but there we are. We have been the women have been in 2 Euros finals. I mean, they haven't won, but they've been in 2 Euros finals since then, so there's a bit of success in them. We've won trophies elsewhere, the She Believes and things like that. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. I think maybe ask me that question again in a week when we're kind of out of this bubble of glory that is winning right now, and then that's when we get down to something a bit more tactical. I think that's maybe in the coming weeks is when to look at it, because obviously everyone's on the bandwagon of being like, oh, we're the incredible like lionesses, we've won the Euros right now, but actually will that translate into a month's time, 2 months' time, 3 months' time? Are we still going to be giving women the platform they deserve and the visibility that they deserve? So yeah, I think we're just in that little bubble right now where can't quite answer that question possibly.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that's experienced over here so often. Like Ireland had very famous result, probably one of the best results in their history, drawing away to Sweden, 1-1, had chances to win the game, and it didn't really translate into the women's National League games being sold out and getting loads of coverage. It has definitely increased, but it seems it's very hard to keep momentum when it comes to covering women's football. It seems like it's very hard to kind of like translate massive successes into kind of success at grassroots levels. But just in terms of the whole tournament, then it did come home in the end. You can say it now, it did come home. But looking at everyone else in the tournament outside of England, I mean, we obviously a big thing before the tournament was Spain missing Pateles, and I think we were all a bit disappointed, particularly when it comes to people who maybe don't tend to be familiar with the women's game. They wouldn't get to see this amazing player. But there were some other standout performances, and there were some other great players at the tournament. Who do you think stood out for you throughout the tournament?
I think you have to give huge props to the Netherlands keeper Van Donselaar, because obviously she stepped in. I think she only had 2 caps prior to the tournament. So yeah, she stepped in after who got injured? Now I can't think what her name is. Clearly Van Donselaar just had such an impact in her performance on me that I've forgotten who their actual number 1 is. Oh, I can't remember who it is now. That's really bad, isn't it?
That's okay. You've worked hard over the past month, in fairness. I think you're allowed to forget a name now and then.
Yeah, but yeah, no, absolutely. I think definitely Van Donselaar. I think she's only 21. Like I said, only had 2 international caps prior to that. So the fact that she stepped up and had the performance that she had, I think she made some phenomenal saves. I think obviously behind a few of the other big names who have been around for a little while, she might have been forgotten about, but yeah, she was fantastic and yeah, just made some really, really phenomenal saves. And I think the pressure of having to step into the role, especially as Netherlands were the holders of the competition, I think obviously there's that pressure there in the first place, isn't it? Can you hold on to that title? So yeah, incredible. I think Leah Walty as well for Switzerland. I think she just reads. She's a midfielder, so she really just reads the game so well. And I think she made the most interceptions of the tournament actually, despite the fact that Switzerland went out fairly sort of early doors. I think she's just such an intelligent player. And she's just a real joy to watch, definitely. I really enjoyed watching Selma Batcher as well of France. She's a really fantastic left back. She plays for Barcelona, I think it is, and I was lucky enough to actually go and I've watched her twice this year, in fact, actually, because I went to the first record-breaking Champions League quarter-final where Real Madrid played Barcelona, and then I also went to the final as well, so I've seen her 3 times now. Did I see France? Oh, wait, no, I've seen her twice. I didn't watch France. But yeah, she's another young player. I think a lot of young players have really impressed me this tournament, actually. I think quite a few of them have had the chance to step up and show why they deserve those international caps. So yeah, Selma Batcher for France, she was fantastic. I think she's a little bit similar to Lucy Bronze actually, where she's not afraid to push up the field a bit, even though she's a left back, she'll quite happily push her way up the wing. And yeah, I think that's quite an intelligent kind of way to play. So yeah, I really enjoyed watching her. Nina Oberdorf as well for Germany. She's a Wolfsburg player. She's another young player actually, funnily enough. I really enjoyed seeing that battle in midfield with her and Kira Walsh. Kira Walsh, all the flowers for Kira Walsh. She's my absolute favourite England player. I love her so much. But yeah, watching those two go head to head in that final was fantastic. And she's feisty as well. I like that about her. She's a feisty player. I think that's my I don't know, how many 5?
How many there were, but most of them were under 25, so the future's certainly bright. Looking forward to the next Euros. In terms of the tournament then for the next one, then we've seen the World Cup expanded to 24 teams. Is there anything to be said for expanding the Euros to 24? It seems like a discussion to be had based on the fact that we were expecting a few hammerings to come in the games between the bigger teams and the smaller teams, and most of the games were quite competitive generally. So even at least for the first hour or so, we saw some big score lines at the end, but the games themselves were quite competitive. Would there be something to be said for expanded 24 teams?
It's interesting actually. When you look at a map, it's very much like Western Europe is the ones who made the final kind of cut, shall we say? And it's all of the Eastern teams. It's unfortunate that that's the way it kind of the dice has rolled, I suppose. I think definitely it's a discussion to be had. I'm not sure about the idea of expanding it just yet, only because I think when you look at qualifiers beforehand and then not so much for the Euros, but if you look at the World Cup, for example, like when England thrashed Latvia like 20-0, that's not of benefit to anybody. I don't think that's no challenge for England. And it's just, it just really shows the gulf in football. I don't know if I can throw an idea out there. I think the whole Nations League thing that we have in the men's football right now, I think that would actually be a better format for women's football personally. I think we're so saturated with men's football and international friendlies and things like that no, I know people that I speak to, nobody really is that interested in the Nations League, and people are often like, oh, Nations League is on, is it? I don't think too many people, if we didn't have the Nations League in the men's kind of world arena, I think not too many people would be that bothered. Whereas actually I think for the development of those teams who are starting to recognise that actually women's football is a good way to go, and that's another avenue for them to explore in terms of development. I think that's definitely, an option that we should explore in terms of women's football, because then you don't get those ridiculous score lines, because we are still in that sort of development phase of football, even at the top, very top, even with England, even with Germany, even with Spain. We are still in that development area, so I think actually a Nations League style sort of championship thing would be of benefit, because then we match teams who are of suitable levels, and that's my 2 pence on it essentially.
Yeah, it makes sense to have teams playing other teams at their level. I think it helps smaller teams in the men's game. Larry, thanks very much. It did come home, so well done. Thanks very much for coming on, and we hopefully we'll talk to you again.
Great, thanks so much.
At PostToPost.Sport on Twitter and Instagram for all our stuff, and you can subscribe to our YouTube below.